How would you feel about no pay for Congress during shutdowns?
Number. They should start losing their seats, starting with the Speaker, minority, and majority leaders.
That's a terrible idea, because not all of them are wealthy. Rich assholes would hold this over the heads of freshman congressmen who can barely afford apartments in D.C., and we'd get worse outcomes because of it.
Exactly this. The pressure would be on those not as wealthy to agree to a situation in order to be able to get their salary. Some would end up voting contrary to their constituents' needs in order to not have a shutdown.
How about this? They still get paid, but can't leave the building.
This is the obvious refutation to all things we should pay Congress less and give them worse perks. Like arguments about making sure you pay elected officials so it doesn't just become a playground for the wealthy are in the Federalist Papers.
If you think any substantial portion of most Congress people's money comes from their official salaries, then you're not paying attention.
If the military doesn't get paid, neither should Congress.
I don't know that we need to tie it to the military. That just allows for patriotic posturing. Are your emotions worth giving all the power of government to the wealthiest members in Congress rather than most of it? Anytime there's a shutdown, all of them should lose their jobs immediately, and there should be emergency elections to appoint new officials.
It's a bad idea. A huge amount of Congress comes into the job already too wealthy to ever need to work again. Those people don't really care if their paycheck is delayed. The minority of Congress that's legitimately working class would have to care and could be bullied to vote for things that help rich people, even more than they already do.
I feel like locked in their room till they find a solution is a better answer. They don't lead, so we may as well.
I also like the triggering of a special election.
It should trigger an election. That's how it works in Canada. If the federal government can't pass a budget through Parliament, we go back to the polls. It's annoying because we have had 3 elections in a row, but it's better than a full shutdown. Withholding pay just gives more power to those with the money to not care. Same in Australia. Can't pass a budget bill after a couple of attempts? Then everyone is up for re-election. Usually it's just half the upper house. It provides a real motive to get the budget bills passed, and you only force the issue if you truly think you'd be better off after an election. That's infinitely better than a shutdown. The goal is to reach a compromise. Not reaching one means the players have lost and will be replaced with new players. Simple and logical. This right here. A shutdown should trigger an immediate election of all of Congress. Most are billionaires from insider trading. It would affect very few. Most? Do you even know how many billionaires there are? Yes, they insider trade. Yes, they are wealthy. But most are billionaires? Come on now. Words have meaning. Congresspersons should be completely banned from purchasing or trading stock. And because they could share their inside information, there should be penalties if their family members or known associates make any purchases or trades that could be linked to their inside knowledge. Withholding or canceling? Big difference. It could encourage even worse behavior. So, I am not American, but in my country, if a situation like this occurs, it is considered the same as a vote of no confidence. When this happens, the Prime Minister is constitutionally required to dissolve Parliament. It shuts down, essentially, and call a snap election. The executive branch still remains, but there will be a new election to decide which party, or coalition of parties, will run the country. While I agree this works in a parliamentary system, it doesn't really work in a constitutional republic like ours. Congress is made of a representation of the states and districts. You couldn't just switch parties the same way. I kind of like the idea, but it would require fundamentally changing how our government is constructed, which requires amending the Constitution, which requires a yes from 2/3 of the states, which won't happen right now on nearly any issue, let alone one that would be Congress approving a mechanism to take themselves out of power. Also, with only 2 real parties, that's his own problem. Terrible idea. We already have a problem where only rich people get elected. This would compound that problem. Symbolic. Representatives and senators aren't living paycheck to paycheck. If you want poor people to run for office, you don't threaten their paycheck. Not paying elected representatives during a shutdown would have 0 impact on the wealthy members and only hurt the few normal people who make it into the chamber. A lot of them are not rich. Of course, many congressmen and women are. AOC famously talked about the beginning of her first term how she had no money to put down for a place in DC. I don't think they should be paid, just like every worker that's impacted, and they shouldn't be allowed to leave DC or go on vacation until a new funding bill is passed. It's insane they can all go home when workers don't get paid. The idea of a shutdown is insane regardless. They should make a rule that if a new budget doesn't pass, workers get paid regardless.
They shouldn't receive healthcare during shutdowns either. Let their wrinkly geriatric asses fend for themselves.
Making them lean even harder on their donors is none too cunning a plan.
And only millionaires not hurt by it running for office.
How about paying them a flat rate and preventing them from acquiring other money from special interest groups? They shouldn't be fluffing up their wallets from being in government. It should be a privilege to be in government, not a high-paying job.
I would prefer they aren't allowed to leave the building during a shutdown. They get paid, and they are required to work. Return to office, Congress.
Not allowed to leave would never fly. How about leaving during a shutdown is a resignation, triggering a special election, or whatever else is required to fill the role? In Canada, instead of a government shutdown, we go back to the polls and vote, meaning if a budget doesn't pass, Parliament might lose their job to the opposition.
Yes. Actually, Congresspeople should be paid significantly more, but should not be allowed to have any other source of income during their time in office. This helps non-millionaire candidates be effective Congresspeople while weeding out the uber-rich.
I would prefer an instant recall election for all members of Congress.
Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button. It really helps. Subscribe for more, and tap the bell so you don't miss the next one.